everybody. I am Zipporah Hayes. I'm here in the Caplin News studio today, and I'm here with none other than Hasaan Rasheed. He was part of the Kingsguard crew for the Black Panther 2018 movie. He's here in Miami, and he's going to talk to us about what he's doing today, what he's doing in the future, how he got started with the movie Black Panther, and what's his inspiration and his perseverance. Hi, how you doing, Hasaan?
I'm good. I'm good. Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
Thank you. It's so funny. We talked about the title of your role, and that still confused me.
They say the mind place. The mind.
Oh,
place.
It does. But that was an important role in the Black Panther movie, and we're definitely going to touch on that. But one of the first things I thought about when I was coming up with your questions to ask you, because I was so excited about this interview, was what was your niche? Like, when did this niche hit for acting, if you can remember?
Honestly, it was kind of a whim. I was teaching as a college professor 8 years, coaching track for a long time. I was kind of in that mode where I was wanting to discover, really just do something different in life. Mm-hmm. I had never saw myself really teaching as long as I did. Both of my parents have been educators for all of my life, so I told myself originally I never wanted to get into teaching, but got into teaching while I was working on my master's degree as a college professor, and I was a young college professor at that time. I was only 21 when I started teaching, and I actually ended up loving it a lot more than I thought I would. And every year I told myself I would find something different, and every year I would get another crew of students that I was able to inspire and help along the way. And I looked up, and 8 years later I was still teaching. So educator by trade, by heart, by passion, and that kind of led me along a path where I found myself in a classroom. But even working on a lot of my degrees, I had always told myself I never wanted to be trapped in a box. I'm very hands-on. I like to be out in the field. I like to apply a lot of my skills to the real world, and so I never like to feel trapped. And it got to a point I think I felt trapped in a classroom. I think the classroom became a trap, but it was a purposeful trap while I was finishing up on my doctorate program. And so I got to the point where I was starting to get to the end of that, and then it was like, okay, I need to find something different that kind of moves me, and ironically, it just kind of all happened at the same time. I was faced with an ultimatum of having to choose between having my kids nonprofit program and working at the college. There were some conflicts along the way, and it kind of was like, well, it was a decision between choosing my kids program and continuing as a college professor, and that was kind of an easy decision for me. But it also kind of left a gap there of figuring out, okay, what else do I want to do in between this that can kind of carry my mind with everything else. And just on a whim, headed to Atlanta, back to my old college stomping grounds, and I got a call from one of my line brothers, and he's a comic book nerd, and so it was just irony that it happened to be for the Black Panther movie, and they were looking for warriors. It was like, well, you look like a natural warrior anyway everywhere you go, so it was like, well, you should go try out. And of course I was like, well, I don't really like getting into movies like that. And I remembered one time being on a set and being as an extra during college, and it was the most boring thing ever to me. But I realized, okay, well, I like superheroes. I've always liked superheroes. I've always been into fitness. I have, a training fitness company, and I was like, okay, maybe this would be different. And then at the time, I had also lost my oldest brother a week after all of that, and so it was a different transitional period for me, in which I was dealing with a lot of mental health at the time that people weren't aware of, but it was a time period in my life where I needed something different to help me navigate.
So this wasn't something you was looking for?
Not at all.
You literally head to Atlanta, and your friend just comes out with, hey, this is a role that they're looking for.
I was heading on vacation.
That's crazy.
To just get away.
That's crazy, but they say that's how it happens. So some of the things that you're purposed to do in life is just comes out of nowhere.
It's destiny.
And so there you were auditioning for Black Panther. Can you take me into that room? I'm curious, like, how did you audition for a Kingsguard role?
That was the funniest time period of life for me, probably. Here I am in this line of thousands of people outside of this warehouse, and I'm in the line the whole time, like, I have no clue what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm really here, and I'm looking around at all these people who've been in the field for a long time, and they have their folders, or they have their headshots, or they're going over stuff, and I'm just sitting here like, okay,
you don't have a folder or
I
a
have
headshot.
no clue of what I need to have. I don't even know if I'm prepared for this, but I'm also one of those type people where I don't sweat. It's like if I'm gonna walk into a room with confidence, and whether I know it or don't know it, you're not gonna know. And more than likely, I'm gonna be able to feel the energy out in the room, and I'm gonna be able to pick up on things, and I'm gonna sponge things, and I pick up on things really, really fast. So I can see something or I can hear something, and you'll think I've known it for years, but the reality is I just pick up on things really fast.
What did they have you do in the room?
Honestly, it was.
You're laughing because it must have been hilarious. Wait, I really want. What did you do in the room?
It was honestly a flex. It was like, So they gave us the option. They were like, okay, well, you can go in, you can basically show off your physique or whatever.
Okay.
And so that was the part where it kind of threw me off, because I'm thinking, okay, am I gonna have to say some lines, or am I gonna have to come up with something? Like, again, I'm clueless to this whole thing.
And you're thinking warrior, and they're saying physique.
Right, right. And so of course I'm like, all right, well, I could do that. That's easy. Like, I stay fit all the time, and I'm watching all these people ahead of me, and I'm like, okay, what are they doing? What are they doing? And of course by this time I'm like, well, if we're talking about warriors, I'm gonna outclass whoever's here. That's my mentality. It's like I'm going in with the highest standard there is. And so they asked me to do a couple just positions and stances, and like I said, it was actually a lot more basic than what my mind was thinking.
Wow.
And then that was it, and I was like, okay. In my head, I'm like, we stood in this line for hours, just for, I mean, it probably wasn't even 5 minutes.
Right, that's how it usually goes.
Yeah, and I was like, is this it? Like, I feel like it should be more, I'm confused at this point, because again, I've never really done this before, and I don't know what the protocols are.
So out of thousands of males, right? I'm assuming they're all male, male and females.
Well, male and females,
right.
Yeah.
So out of all those 1,000, you were one of the ones selected for the Kingsguard.
I was one of the 10 for the core, because it was a core 10 of us for the Kingsguard, and so I was one of the core 10.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
And I was the most. What stood me out was because of my hair.
Right.
I have this very unique hair color that I have.
I noticed that.
I have
It's
four
natural?
different. I have 4 different natural hair colors, and they change a lot with the weather. And as I've gotten older, it seems that even my mood, whatever mood I'm in, it
your
kind of
hair color
changes.
change. Okay, so that's a whole other question. A whole other segment of your hair color changing with the mood. I've heard of eye colors changing.
Even my eyes, they do the same thing.
That's insane. So that's very unique.
But it's what stood me out to be the only Kingsguard, and that's why some people call me the redhead Kingsguard, because I'm the only one of one. So there wasn't I didn't have a backup person. There wasn't another they can switch me out with. I was literally the only one that looked like me.
You stood out, so they know they can remember you.
Exactly.
Now tell me, what was it like working on set with Chadwick?
Oh man, that was an amazing experience. One, I knew of Chadwick from the previous movies, but I didn't know Chadwick, and so even seeing some of the people on set, the only person I probably recognized off the top was Angela Bassett, and I think Forrest Whitaker, and then Michael Beaton. Those were the only people I recognized offhand. So even when I first saw him, I was like, oh, okay, that's Chad. It's like I've seen him on. I think the last time I might have watched him was Ray Charles.
Right, right.
And so
amazing job.
Yeah, but it wasn't, and I've loved all the movies he's been in, but he wasn't somebody I guess I necessarily paid attention to as much until that time period, and then it was just like, okay, this guy is really unique, and then because we were in a lot of a lot of scenes together, it made me, a lot of the downtime we had in between, it allowed me to have time to be able to have conversations with him that kind of, it gave me a different light of actors and kind of the world of entertainment, you know. And one of the biggest things for me was always, when going into acting, and I think what probably made me nervous about it years ago, was how do these actors come out here and memorize all of these lines for these movies?
Exactly.
You know, and so I caught him one day kind of like talking to himself, he's kind of pacing back and forth and talking, and I was like, I wonder if he's going over his lines and stuff, you know. And so I kind of just watched for a little bit, you know, and we always kind of ended up in just kind of random conversations in between shots, you know, and so it was kind of like enlightening wisdom, you know, he would give me sometime. And of course, a lot of people at that time was also wondering who I was, you know, like, how did you get here, you know, and of course it threw people off because of my backstory, where they're like, wait a minute, you didn't go to school for acting, and you didn't, you just hopped off, you just randomly got here, like, you know, that was kind of the walking story. And they're like, okay, that's, your story is unique because you just started, this is your first movie.
That's sort of like what we were talking about before we started rolling. We're talking about how you got into acting and how many others have to go through castings.
Right.
You, from what you were saying, you didn't have to go through any castings. You were just kind of selected to be chosen for the role.
Right.
So that's rare, very ironic, but I told you to appreciate it.
Right,
Because having a background in casting myself, it's like, it's not pretty for people, and it's very nerve-wracking. But you, how does that feel to be able to be selected? Like,
it felt like an honor, honestly. And then as I started learning other people's stories, because for me, again, I'm a curious person. So when this was a new field for me altogether. So I wanted to learn what it was like. I wanted to learn other people's, you know, struggles, successes. I wanted to know what that felt like, you know. And like any field I've been in a lot of different fields of things in my entirety of life. So it's what brings me a lot of my experiences. And this was an experience that I was so away from that it made me even more curious to know everybody's story. You know, whether you've been in it for 30, 40 years or only 2 or 3 years. It's like, what was that journey like? You know, it's almost like I was kind of interviewing everybody, but a lot of people didn't know I was really in that mindset because they're thinking, well, if you made it here, then you must know. You know, and that was the perception. You got to know what it's like because you're here on this platform. You know, this is a high platform. This is Disney. This is Marvel.
Didn't.
Yeah, and I had no clue. I had no clue. But again, you couldn't tell because I was playing my part well. Didn't realize I had acting in me all this time.
You didn't know. But see, I've heard, even with educators, that you have to put on this show with the kids anyway. But you don't realize you're doing that.
I didn't realize it.
So you were getting practice, I would say, while you were. A lot
of practice.
That's crazy.
And I told people that, I said, you know, as a college professor, I have to play multiple roles and wear multiple hats because I have different types of people that I'm around all the time. So I have over thousands of students that I taught with thousands of personalities, and I have to approach all of them differently. You know, so I said, I didn't realize I've been acting this whole time and just never had it recorded.
And you were set up
exactly.
For that opportunity.
And it allowed me to be able to succeed in that environment naturally because it's not like I prepped for anything specifically. It's just my life, my natural life allowed me to be able to naturally be in a role and stand into it as if I've been doing it for a long time.
And that's rare, but that's a blessing. I'm going to ask you something. What is it like, and not that one, can you share a behind the scenes memory from the set that still stays with you to this day? And you might have a lot of them, but
I have a whole lot of them, but I'm gonna say the one that stuck with me and has carried me for a while is it was one of the conversations me and Chadwick had actually that when I told him kind of my nervousness of acting and also that this was brand new to me, and I kind of was wondering, okay, is the path that got me here, will this keep me going? You know, and it was kind of confirmation from him. He's like, whatever you've done to get here to this point, you need to keep doing that. you know, continue being yourself, in other words, you know, and that was the message that kind of, it's sunk in and it stayed with me this entire time, that
Beautiful.
whatever you're doing, continue on that path. And because obviously it's opening doors and it's getting you to places like this. And it was kind of confirmation for me, because at that time it was like I really didn't know what I wanted to do.
Right.
I just knew I needed to do something different for my mental health and to help me get along the dark places I was at in my headspace. And so that was kind of one of those, okay, all right, so I just need to just be me. It's best to just be me. Everybody has different paths. Everybody, you know, gets their own way, you know, and that's kind of what my story was, even going on tour after that movie, was to be able to shed light on the fact that, look, there's no perfect way of getting to the top. It's just your way.
Exactly.
It's whatever way you created that helps get you there. And so that was a you know, confirmation message from him that just told me, okay, all right, let me just keep doing what I'm doing.
And being yourself, I know for a lot of actors, it's sometimes hard to, like, especially young actors, it's hard to find who you are. You know, you're in college or you're in an institution where you're being trained to be a professional actor, right? Or a professional person within the entertainment industry. Like, how does one find themselves? You know, we're all on this journey. You know, how do you find yourself to be yourself, you know, especially in an environment like that?
I think, so I give homage to really my time period at Morehouse. Morehouse College helped to bring out parts of myself that I didn't realize that was there. It built a different confidence level of myself. I was a track All-American there, was only track All-American freshman, still record holder. So, you know, I had a lot of publicity of stuff that happened during that time period.
Pause. No one broke your record?
So I was the only freshman on the 4x4 indoor record, and it still holds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, go on.
And at that time, I was training for the Olympics, so a different mindset, but I was also kind of, in a way, I was kind of a poster boy in places. So, and then I was an Oprah Winfrey scholar, you know, so I had a lot of light that was shining on things that I was doing at the time period, but that time period also gave me a perspective of how people viewed me and also the perception. And so it gave me a different mindset that prepared me really for this type of environment that I didn't know at the time was going to be an environment I would end up in, you know. But it humbled me during that time period because it allowed me to really see how people act when you're in that light, you know, and how they treat you. You know, and so it already gave me an early perspective at that time period of the popularity, the being in the spotlight, the having to really kind of shade parts of my life so that people wouldn't use it against me, or, you know, just people in general, you know. And so it gave me a mental mindset to be prepared for what I guess I was destined for, that put me in the role that I'm in today, in which you see a lot of people in the industry where, and I tell people this, you know, being popular or being a star comes with a lot of things that most people don't see on the surface. They see you on the cameras, they see the lights, they see the posters, but they don't understand the mental behind having to be that person or having to be that celebrity, you know. And I'm like, it's a different energy, you know, and if you're not prepared for it, and especially young actors, and you know, they get it the worst because their minds normally haven't grasped that yet, and they just kind of get thrown into it, and then it happens, and before you know it, your life is flipped upside down, you know. And so I've been blessed to be able to have those energies early, to be able to help navigate others through it now, to say, look, this is how you need to handle this, this is how you should approach this, because the mental health aspect of it is very important. And a lot of people don't understand how that affects everything, you know. And so I'm glad that I was able to get a lot of that early, because it prepared me for the now.
So, talking about mental health and how important it is, and I know there's a lot of talk in the media about mental health. It's all over social media.
Yes.
How important, and you said it's important, but how can one like hone in on their mental health when it comes to acting? I know for me, when I've tried certain lines and roles, I'm not gonna lie, it was therapeutic. I felt there. I was like, oh, that was therapy,
Yes.
for me. But somebody else might look at it in another light. How can one really tackle the importance of their mental health, like getting that together, honing that before getting into an environment like that? Because I think it's important to have a level head
Right.
when you're going into spaces like that.
It is.
How would you say? What advice would you give someone?
I would say, and this is kind of when I had a self-discovery of understanding that I was different. That was probably the biggest part of my life that changed my aspect of how I viewed everything. Having that confidence to know that, look, your struggle and your journey is going to look different from everybody else's, and the fact that everybody's not going to understand your journey, and that's okay. It's being okay knowing that everybody's not going to understand. I think at one point in my life when it was like, okay, people don't understand me, and it would frustrate me. It's like, why don't you understand me? And I'm putting it out there. Am I not saying it right? It makes you question a lot of things. But when I got to the point where it's like, okay, no, I'm just different, and I need to accept the fact that I'm different, and I think differently, and because of my exposure that my parents gave me, while I was younger, it exposed my mind to different worlds and very outside the box, and so I didn't realize how that perspective, getting those experiences at a young age, really groomed my mind to think so outside the box that some people feared it and some people just didn't understand. And for a while I struggled with trying to figure out why people didn't, and then I realized, no, it's not meant for everybody to understand the why. It's only meant for me to understand that it will be a different path and it's going to come with different things.
Exactly.
And that allowed me to keep a structured head on my shoulders to where nobody could come in and break that. It's like I tell a lot of people, it's like all money's not good money. I said, as many things that I've been offered, as many projects that people have wanted me to be on, I've always kept perspective. Is this what moves me? Is this something that I'm passionate about? Is this something that if I died today or tomorrow, I would be happy doing? And I always ask myself those questions before I become a part of any project. Does this go along with who I am? Does this give the type of energy that I want to put out to the world? And some people, as we all know in the entertainment industry, as they say, sell your soul. I'm one of those. No, I like to keep mine intact.
Yes.
And if it doesn't move me, I don't care to be a part of it. And I've had to turn down a lot of stuff like that. And again, people question, and I'm like, well, what are you doing and why? But
I would question it too. Like, how do you turn down opportunities? As if you're a young actor, you're trying to get out in this industry, you're kind of told, don't turn down any opportunities, go if you can, do it if you can. Like, how do you really, you think about it, you tell somebody, turn it down. It's easier said than done.
Right.
How does one do that?
Well,
what's the check box? What's the checklist?
I think a lot of that probably plays into my young entrepreneurism because of getting that mindset at a very young age. I was always taught to basically, if it's not there, create it. And so I've taken that same mentality with every aspect of my life. Okay, if you don't open that door for me, I'm going to create my own door. And if you make it harder for me, I'm probably going to make it so good that you're going to want to join me at my door. And that's, I guess you can say, a lot of the leadership role that I have in a lot of places of my life. That's kind of always been me. I've always been a natural born leader. So essentially I'll follow enough until I see that it's time for me to part ways.
So basically, it's good to say if you turn down an opportunity, you're not missing opportunities if you're able to create your own door.
Exactly.
So think about it in that way and have the confidence in yourself and believe in yourself to create your own door.
Right.
I love that.
Right. I believe that I'm going to work hard enough to where that door will open again, and it'll open when the timing is right, not exactly when I want it.
Come on now. Come on.
Yeah.
Preach. So many people give up right before their breakthrough, right? They're pushing, they're grinding, they're up all night. Was there ever a moment when you wanted to quit, and what made you keep going?
I had a lot of moments like that, actually. And why I'm so big on mental health now is kind of, those are one of the main reasons, because I've struggled, and as they say, check on your strong ones. I've always had to be that person for both sides of my family and my friends, everybody. I've always been the strong one, but a lot of times throughout my lifetimes, and some people know, but when I had those dark spaces I was in, a lot more often than most people probably would think, it was the kids, that I've helped raise that really kind of influenced me to keep going. A lot of times when I wanted to just give up and just, really just, clock out, it was me leaving and knowing that I would be leaving them that influenced me to say, nah, I would be cheating. I can't do that. That wouldn't be fair. And so all of those questionings and the thought of me leaving, and obviously life is not promised, but for me, that was a motivation to at least keep going and trying.
Yes.
Even when I didn't want to. It's like, no, that wouldn't be fair. I can't do that. I can't give up that easily. That would be the easy route out, and you don't know easy. So what are you doing? But them being alive and making me proud influenced me to say, okay, I got to keep going. I got to keep creating this way, and I got to keep showing them that no matter how hard it is, I got to keep going, and you got to do the same thing.
And tell me about the kids, because we were talking off, right? You blew my mind. Talking off camera about these wonderful kids that you're raising now. Tell us about that, because I don't think people know about that.
Yeah. So I have quite a few best friends. I've had the privilege of being able to raise their sons in different time periods of my life, where they needed a male figure to, help their sons turn into men, and whether it was at birth at the hospital up until certain points, or whether it was midpoints, in years here and there, I've had pivotal points in all of their lives to be able to help in positioning them to be, the young men they are today. And that helping to raise them is what influenced me to actually start my kids' nonprofit programs, because I saw this being a large problem. At the time, obviously, it was just personal people who I knew, and I wanted to be an influence for their kids. But then I realized, no, this problem is everywhere. And it's also a problem we have in the communities and society everywhere. It's like, okay, single-parent households is a real thing, and it affects how people. I realized how it affected a lot of my friends' lives and people around me, and it's like, okay, it started as helping to raise them made it make more sense for me. And so it's what also influenced me to start the programs, because it was like, okay, I want to be able to help in a larger spectrum, to where it's not only just helping in the personal households of people who I know, but I can help spread this influence, this love, this knowledge, to be able to bring the resources together to help all single-parent households get through these different struggles that pretty much hold us down.
And tell me about this nonprofit.
Okay, so yeah, it caters to kids age 4th grade through 12th grade. And it's a large spectrum, but it's kind of where we have them young enough to be able to show them these different skills and offer them resources and opportunities that pretty much allow them to get outside of the box. We want to be able to make sure that they're kind of going into the world with the tools and the skills and the knowledge to be able to navigate in a perspective that allows them to change the generational curses.
What's the name of the program?
All My Godchildren.
All My Godchildren.
All
Wow.
My Godchildren. Yes.
Wow, powerful.
Yes. And it used to be crazy enough when I first started it, because I was, helping to raise nothing but boys. It was originally just all my godsons. And when I realized, it's the women are needing help just as much, because because of not having both parents around, the perspectives and the mindsets are totally different depending on which parent you have there and which parent you don't, and so that's what made me actually transition it into all my godchildren so that it can cater to both sides of the spectrum and be able to help the balance.
Now, this is another question. How do you handle all of your godchildren? I don't know where they're living, if they're living in the same states, but how do you handle dealing with 7 and your career? And I mean,
it's been an interesting journey, to say the least.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's raising them in different time periods. I had multiple things. I've always had multiple things going on in life, whether it was being in college and being a full-time athlete, or helping with stuff back home, or helping with my younger brothers. I've always been used to having a lot of things going on at one time. So I'm kind of one of those things where I'm one of those people where multitasking and having a lot of things going on is kind of my normal world, compared to people who are used to only having 1 or 2 things going on. I get overwhelmed with only having 1 or 2 things going on.
Say that. I can agree with you.
Yeah, it feels more normal for me to have multiple things. So for me, it wasn't necessarily, although crazy, for me, it actually balanced me, and even when it got to the time periods where, they started to get older, or I didn't see them as much, it was like, it was a void for me, a depressional time period, actually, especially, I would say COVID probably was the biggest point, where it was like, because of my traveling, I couldn't see them as much anymore. I used to be able to get all of them, for the most part, during the summer, all at once, to where, that would be kind of our bonding periods. But when COVID happened, that separated a lot, and like I said, a lot of people were nervous with me coming around because I was still traveling every week. You
had all of them for the summer?
I normally would get, I would get them in, I guess you could say, clusters.
Okay.
Yeah. So
but you would, throughout the summer.
Throughout the summer, yeah.
But see, I'm a mom, and that even in clusters, that's a lot of work. Everybody eats something different. I don't care if you shop at Costco or BJ's or anywhere. Everybody's different. This one has a bigger appetite, and it's mostly boys.
Right.
So they're eating you out of house and
crazy.
home.
Yeah.
Oh my God, bless your heart.
Appetites are crazy, but I figured it out. I figured it out, and that's why I tell people a lot of times, just in parenting, there's no perfect way to parent. Each child is different, each personality is different, each style is different. It's like, there's no book for this. It's just, you just have to navigate it, and you have to just stay strong and keep working it out, and that's kind of the message that I try to deliver to just parents in general. It's like, a lot of people feel like, oh, I failed at this, I failed at that, and it's like, no, you did your job. Exactly. You gave them life, and they're still alive.
Exactly.
And although that might not seem like a lot, that goes a long ways. Yeah, some bad decisions might have been made along the way. Yeah, you probably could have did this better, could have done that better. Okay, fix it and keep going. But a lot of people dwell on what they can't control, or what they see as, oh, bad. It's like, it could be worse. It could be worse. Somebody's situation is always worse than the next. And I tell people, keep that perspective, and it'll make you think a little bit differently. But I tell a lot of folks, it's kind of having that mindset that you can do whatever it is you want to do. And a lot of people sometimes they use parenting as an excuse, and I hate that sometimes, because it's like, well, oh, I can't do this and I can't do that because I have kids. No, it's called balance. You have to balance your kids, your lifestyle, and what you have to do. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy.
And time management.
Yes, time management is everything. My college track coach used to tell us that all the time. You have 24 hours in a day, and if you want it to happen, you can make it happen.
And think about it, you don't even have 24 hours, because when you're asleep, that's what, 8 hours or so, and then
that's a good day.
And then so you only have a few more hours to not even a full 24.
Right. And I've tested that theory a lot, sometimes more often than none. Well, I'll be up 36 hours and still don't get everything done. And so I tell people it's really about what you want to do and what you prioritize, and how you navigate that. It's like, hey, okay, it's like a lot of the kids I had growing up, I would take them to work with me, or I would take them to things that I had done, and you can tell the difference in them and other kids who weren't exposed to a lot. And it's like, no, they need to see some of these things. They need to see this work ethic. They need to see, mom and dad grinding, and these are things that help build them too. You know, it's like it's no need in them having to stay home and, you know, or put them in front of the TV set. It's like give them these life skills and allow them to learn the things that you're navigating in so they understand what it's actually like.
And let me go into, that's great, and I'm glad your program is here filling in that gap, because kids need those life skills, because a lot of parents are single, or they might be married, but both parents are working long-hour jobs just to keep afloat. So they need programs like yours, and it's absolutely amazing. I want to touch on networking and in the collegiate arena, how important it is to network, and how can one learn how to communicate? I noticed in the collegiate world, a lot of times we're doing different events with our organizations, we're getting plugged here and there, but there's this difficulty with walking up to people and talking to them and introducing yourself to them and what you do. How would you help one to be able to network, and how would you encourage them, inspire them to go out to these different events? Throw yourself into them and tell them who you are, introduce yourself and what you can do, and how many doors networking can open for them, because networking can be your net worth, you know?
Exactly.
So like, give us some tips on that and some encouraging words on what collegiates can do in that area of networking.
So my motto is always, you know, walk in every door with confidence and don't be afraid to meet total strangers. And a lot of times, I kind of grew up with this too. My dad used to give me $1 for every time I would go meet a total stranger in rooms. And I was one of those kids, contrary to what people see now, I was kind of shy. I mean, I was always good, smiling, always happy, but when it came to meeting total strangers, I wasn't that person, you know. But I never knew the concept of him, why he did that, until I got older, and I was like, oh, it was like the incentive program. You know, it's like, okay, I'm gonna give you $1 for every new person you go meet. But at the time, I didn't realize that was building parts of me that allowed me to be who I am today, where it's like, okay, now I'm not afraid to go in a room and just mix and mingle with total strangers, you know. But it's being able to have that confidence factor to say, you know what, I'm not afraid to go and meet this person. Or even if it's telling yourself, you know, I need to go meet this person so it can help take me to the level in which I want to go. It's just having the mindset that, you know, look, I want to excel, I want to do something better for my life, and in order to do that, I had to cross out of my comfort zone. I tell people the most successful thing that keeps me going in life is staying uncomfortable. I put myself sometime in uncomfortable situations just to force myself to excel. You know, it's like, yes, okay, yeah, I don't like going to this room with all these people who I really probably don't even care to know, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I don't know what I might get out of it. I don't know who I might meet in it that might help me get to the next step that I'm trying to get to. Or it could be that blessing that I was looking for, and it allows me an opportunity with another opportunity, you know. And so I tell folks, you never know who you're going to meet, so always be on your best behavior, always bring your A game, and always come and put your best foot forward, because you never know who's watching.
You never know. Wow, that was amazing. You took me to church. No, that was absolutely awesome, because I see it all the time with the nervousness. I used to be nervous too when it came to networking, but it's very important, especially when you're navigating this industry. You know, a lot of times people in high positions are not going to walk up to you, you know, and they're not going to look like high positions either. So you got to be able to, you know, assert yourself to these people. So another thing, for the lessons, matter of fact, let's go to this one. What lessons have you learned throughout your journey that could help the next generation of actors and production professionals?
Practice. Perfect practice is a key. You know, it's like you want to perfect your craft, and sometimes you have to do that in baby steps. You know, sometimes you have to take certain parts of yourself, realize where your weaknesses, where your strengths are, work on those weaknesses to develop them into strengths, and be able to navigate from there. A lot of time, some people forget that the practicing part is what helps. It's what builds you. You know, it's just like being an athlete. You know, if you don't practice, then it's going to show in your performance. It's the same way with any application of life. You know, if you're not practicing your art, if you're not practicing to be the best, it's like, what are you doing it for? You know, and that's kind of my motto when I tell people to always bring your A game, put your best foot forward. If you're not practicing to be the best, not just mediocre, the best. Even though your best might not be the same as somebody else's best, if it's your best, that's the level you need to be at, you know, pushing yourself to perfection. Yes, it's not always going to be perfect, but if you're pushing to that level every time, that means you're going to get better results every single time.
Every time.
And if you can continue on that path, just making sure that every time you step in that room, you're offering, basically you're not selling yourself short. You know, you're going 100% every single time. And that's kind of the words I live by myself. I tell people I'm either 0 or 100. I don't know halfway, I don't know in between, I don't know mediocre. If I'm going to do anything, even if it's something I've never done before, I'm going to put my best foot forward with all confidence. That doesn't mean I won't fail.
Right.
Because failure is also a part of the journey. Sometimes you have to fail in order to be successful. I'm like, no successful person made it without any failure at all. I don't know, not one. You know, so it's a part of the journey, but what you have to be prepared for is the preparation to fail so that you can succeed.
Come on, do you have a church? Are you going to be a bishop?
You know, I preach in certain places.
I'm coming to your church. I'm coming to your church. No, I love it. No, this is good wisdom and what a lot of us need to know and a lot of us need to hear. A lot of times there are disappointments and you feel like, hey, I can't go on anymore. You know, I'm done with this. I'll try something else. But I love what you're saying because it's speaking to a lot of today. And my last question, I hope it's my last question. It should be. We got almost out of time. But if you could leave one message for people who are struggling to reach their goals right now, what would you want them to remember when they feel like giving up?
Let your inner hero shine. That's the slogan I go by while I'm touring and still doing motivational speaking. And that message pretty much just enlightens you to be who you are and let that inner part of yourself shine to the world. And shine that light on as many people as you can, because you never know what your message can help do for someone else. And although it might seem light or small to you, it could be big to others. And you never know, again, who's watching. They might catch that, they might see that, they might see something in you that you don't see in yourself. And as long as you can continue projecting that and putting that out and putting that type of energy out, something good is always going to come from it. It might not happen right now immediately, but as long as you continue being consistent and putting that same energy out, it'll come back twofold.
I love it. I love it. And I just thought about one more. And this is a good one. Everybody's not going to be mad. So are you going to be in the next sequel? I know everybody's wondering. When the sequel? We know that there's going to be a Black Panther 3.
Oh, yeah. There is going to be a 3. And when I get that call, we shall see.
Oh, man. Okay, and keep me posted, even if we got to do something virtual. We're definitely looking forward to it and looking forward to following up with you on the sequel to Black Panther. It was an amazing kickoff. The part 1 was amazing. And thank you for being here.
Oh, yeah.
All right, guys, we are wrapping up. Hasaan Rasheed has stayed with us for some time and gave us some insight on who he is and what he's building for today and for tomorrow. It's been an awesome time, Rasheed, and have a wonderful time here in Miami.
Yes.
All right. And we're done for today. Thank you for watching.